The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Your chance to have your say. This is the home of Isle of Man voices and opinion and views and public dialogue. This is the place where everybody who wants to can have their say on the public radio forum that is Mannin Line. You can text also on 166 177, WhatsApp 166 177, email studio manxradio.com. Did you have anything to say regarding yesterday when Andrew Smith and Daphne Kane were in? Both the Garth MHKs had their say, and if you'd like to follow up on anything, Facebook was quite hot yesterday about what happened. Robert just said it was a bit disturbing to find out from Andrew Smith that unless the current flood defence work on Glen Road is not finished or to the satisfaction of the insurance companies by the 30th of September, those properties in Glen Road will face another winter with no insurance cover. Robert says this is because there are eco-zealots in DEFRA which are forcing it to stop. Thanks for that opinion, Robert, and good to hear from you. And if there's anything else you want to say about what happened yesterday with Daphne Kane and Andrew Smith. Andrew Smith made an interesting point regarding the MER, in that he said he'd like to see more people on it. So I just wonder, this new report from Sistra, the company that's basically looking at the future of railways on the Isle of Man, is it the fact that the heritage railways will be worth it for us if there are more people on it, or is it worth having them there to get visitors to the Isle of Man, and the fact that they may spend on the Isle of Man? Do you think that's worth it? I'm sure people are doing calculations as to how much it is worth to the Isle of Man, but that's a Garth MHK, and bearing in mind the MER runs right through Garth, top to bottom. So any thoughts on that? Text, email, call and WhatsApp. Chris is first with us today. Hi, Chris.
Hi. Yes, it's just an observation. I'm sure everybody's noticed it, and you have. It's been years now, at least two. They knocked KFC down in Duke Street and the other shops down. They put scaffolding up, and for years, nobody is on site. No work's being done, and I just wonder how long that eyesore is going to be there. There is no people there, and it's sealed off all the way around the back. I've managed to look in. No work is being done whatsoever, and that's the way it's been for a couple of years. And I just wonder if they've got a mandate to get these so-called project, or have they run out of money or something. But it is an absolute eyesore, and I wouldn't mind if there was work being done, but there's not any work being done whatsoever. How long is it going to remain an eyesore in Duke Street?
We asked a couple of politicians a while back, and they said, really, at the moment, there's nothing they can do about it because it's been started, as you say, there's a massive steel frame up there, and when it is finished, it's going to be enormous. It's going to make Duke Street very dark. But at the moment, and there's supposed to be, I think it's supposed to be a car lift inside, so anybody parking a car in there has to do a sharp right from Fort Street and go into a car lift. So bearing in mind that Tavira are now going to develop the other side by the promenade, the old Villiers Hotel side, that's going to make Fort Street very busy. And as you say, originally I think the developer started, there was something financial went on and it's not been progressed, but as you say, it looks like a giant steel statue at the moment.
Well, whoever issued the planning permission should have had a penalty clause as to when and what it does and when it should be built. And if they go over that, My point is, there's nothing being done, and there's been no bodies there, no workers, nothing. And you're telling me now that they don't know what's going to happen. This should, before they got planning permission to knock it down and everything, they should have had all the plans and a penalty clause taking place. At the moment, it's just one big eyesore that's doing nothing. And whoever's responsible for building this, they should have a penalty clause for every day there's no people there doing work. That's my whole point. Nothing is being done, and it hasn't been for years. There is nobody. If you go there now and you can see through the cracks, there's no people. It's all sealed off. And I'd like to know when they're going to actually start the work. And you're saying to me they don't know what they're going to do. Well, that should have been in the planning application before they had permission to knock it down and erect that steel thing up, the eyesore. So the people that issue the planning permission, they're wrong, MHKs, and the constructors are wrong. And it's just a giant eyesore, and I live a few feet away. I live in James Street, and I go past there every day, and I can tell you nobody has been there for years. It's been at least 2 years since he put the scaffolding up, and nothing, no groundwork, no people there at all. And I'd just like to know how long this is going to go on for, because it really is an eyesore.
All right.
So I just saw other people that notice it. So. Yes.
Well,
so,
no, I mean, Chris, thanks for bringing that to where everybody knows it. I think you're pushing an open door. Everybody wants to see the damn thing finished because it looks shocking at the moment, but it's...
well, it can't get finished if there's no starting. There's nobody starting or doing anything.
And so at the back of it, Chris, I suspect, if the finances aren't there, then nothing's going to get started.
Well, they should have checked that out before they started doing it. And the people that issued the planning permission should have implemented a penalty clause, and that should have been all taken care of. So the planning proprietors, the people there's lots of people that are to blame for this, and nobody's taken it into account. But at the moment, you said when the thing's finished, it's not going to get finished if nobody's there doing anything.
Yeah, all right,
so
point taken. Yeah.
I'd like to know why.
Okay,
so,
all right, Chris, we appreciate that. Thanks for calling today.
Okay, bye.
Good to hear from you. 14 minutes past 12. Howard's on now as well. Howard?
Oh, hi, Andy. Just pertaining to what that chap was talking about. I saw it only last week, I think it was on your news website, that the architects involved with that particular building site have made a statement that work will be recommencing on that in a very short period of time. They were aware of the problems that had happened, and they have another, company moving in to finish it off.
You just wonder when, though, don't you, Howard?
Well, they did give a time scale, in a matter of months. It would be this sort of very near in the future. I know, and it's something I've said myself on the programme about that being the bird cage. But it's just one of those things. It's going to be an eyesore for a while, and as that man has just rightly said, there hasn't been a soul on there for at least a couple of years. But according to this, it is a Scottish firm of architects that are involved with it, and they have given a commitment, and it's somewhere in the archives. I was just trying to find it, but it was on your news that they have given a promise that work will be starting again very shortly.
Yeah, it was a couple of... they're called Thompson Hunter Associates, based in Kilmarnock, and a couple of weeks ago, I think we spoke to them, and they said, it's going to be mixed development, retail units, 11 apartments are going to be there. Correct. So presumably they're going to need 11 car parking spaces. At least. Because if nothing else, if we term it as Marks and Spencer's, but it's a DOI car park there, that closes when Marks and Spencer's shuts. Yeah. So
for all intents and purposes, that is going to be useless as far as parking for apartments, etc. Because you'd have to come in, you had to be home for about 6 o'clock. But they would have to build parking lots in there. And one of the things that I remember when Boots was down in Victoria Street, and they were wanting to knock the existing building down and rebuild, and the council insisted on them putting underground parking. And this was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Boots actually moved off the island, and that was one of the things that they refused to do. To go down and build car parking underneath, which nowadays would be neither use nor ornament because the number of vehicles that you get going into there. But having said that, this is one of the things that should be taken into consideration. And also, now, so much in the fall, with a large number of electric vehicles they're encouraging, and the danger of these with the fires in electric vehicles, to put them underground or, in very close proximity to any dwelling area, not so very long ago, been forbidden.
And I would have thought, Howard, bearing in mind what the Manx Development Corporation is doing up at Westmoreland Road and that whole village and the lack of car parking spaces, if anywhere was going to be a 5-minute city, then Duke Street would be. So why do they need car parking spaces if you're right in the centre of town? I mean, we're now in this new era where they're talking about less car parking. Surely that would be a place to start.
But a large percentage of the island, they do have cars where they live in town and not. It's not saying that they're going to use public transport, but at one time, all above the shops in Stranraer, so it used to be, apartments, flats, etc. But that then, for whatever reason, with security or because of stock holding, everything else like that, they gradually disappeared. But to put apartments down there, it can only improve the place from what it is at the present moment. Anything as it is, it's an eyesore. But retail, office blocks and apartments, you're going to need a lot more car parking than 11 car parks. They're only for the houses. What about the offices?
Yeah.
You're going to need parking down there for that.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Howard.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye now. 19 minutes past 12. This is Thompson Hunter Associates in Kilmarnock. The architects behind this development that's just got nowhere, really. It's just a giant statue. It's like a Banksy sitting in Duke Street. They say the start of work is imminent. Well, they said that about 2 weeks ago now, so we are, how far away from Christmas now? I'm trying to think now. We're 12 weeks next Monday. It's Christmas Day. So 13 weeks next Monday. It's the 1st of January 2024. If you're a betting person, what's the betting on that starting before 2024? You'd like to see it. But I must point out there was a provision for a car lift inside that building. So there's no car parking spaces outside, but cars would wait for a car lift on Fort Street and then be hoiked up into the car park inside. To the best of my knowledge, the car lift is still in the design. Now, bearing in mind that Tavere, just across the way, are going to be building offices and a hotel on Douglas Promenade, waiting for a car to be hoiked up into a lift or one coming down could hold that traffic flow up. So you just wonder what the planners think about it now. Maybe they can't change planning retrospectively, but in retrospect, was it the best thing to do? So we wish the developers well, and it'd be nice when they start it. My only point is, it is very high. It's certainly higher than the old KFC building was. So that's going to make Duke Street very dark. Maybe they'll turn the lights on anyway. So that's Duke Street. What about that? And also, of course, this proposed £30 million commercial and residential development in the centre of Douglas to move a step forward. The Middlemarch site, the famous Middlemarch site in Douglas, set to happen the bus station. It's opposite what used to be called the bus station, which is now just a line of bus stops. John Bell is from ADG, which are the project architects, and they're based in Darlington.
Well, the positive news, we have got the application to a position where it has now been submitted to the planning authority, and we are just in the process of trying to get the validation resolved. We are hopeful that the application should be validated either today or early next week.
There are, of course, a number of major developments now being progressed in Douglas, so obviously this is good news for the redevelopment of the town.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed that we saw the press article this morning on the 3 other developments in the area, which is obviously this is all positive news for for Douglas, I'd say, and the Isle of Man. So hopefully we can help process and start the vision.
Just remind us what's involved with this development.
What we've done is we've developed a scheme on the site for 97 parking spaces, which is then built on top of that. We've got a restaurant, a casino, offices, and 25 apartments with rooftop gardens.
So, providing everything goes ahead with planning, what kind of timescale are you now working to, John?
So, subject to planning, obviously, rather than giving specific dates, I think the timescales we'll be working to. As soon as we get planning permission, we'll be looking to get to site within 6 months, I would imagine, 6 to 12 months. It just depends on the level of detailed design work we undertake prior to that approval, subject to us getting approval. But yeah, I would like to think 6 to 12 months we'll be on site.
And it's quite a difficult site to develop, I would imagine, right bang in the middle of town.
It is, but we've designed it in such a way that we can actually use parts of the site to ensure that we're not parking around the area, because we appreciate that's been one of the big concerns for a lot of people in and around the area. So we've also started to think of how it could be constructed. So although we're filling quite a large part of the site, we are leaving part of the site free, which is where some of the parking is going to be.
His name's John Bell from ADG, the project architects in Darlington. We'll see. Apparently, looking at the plans, the police station is going to stay. Well, maybe they'll be repurposing that. I wonder what it's going to be. And lots of questions in regarding, at the moment, if that means that the palace is going to go, what's going to happen to the swimming pool? Is there going to be a swimming pool and a health club as there is currently in the Palace Hotel? Well, we'll find out closer to the date, obviously. Just a quick word regarding the overnight boat. A few people have asked and said the Manxman disappeared this morning, so it looks like the Manxman has headed over to Heysham empty, maybe to shelter. Then she should be able to get to Heysham in time for the overnight crossing. So at the moment, the 2:15 overnight boat from Heysham to the Isle of Man hasn't been cancelled, so then maybe that's why the Manxman has disappeared over to Heysham. And Andy said, regarding Moore's Kipper Yard and Smokehouse, can anybody let us know if there's a preservation order on the site building to stop it being dismantled, sold and demolished? This is the grim news that Moore's Smokehouse in Peel is set to close its doors for good, forever, over. One of the Isle of Man's most iconic food producers is set to close its door. It's been operating for more than 140 years, and this weekend it closes. The last traditional Manx kipper yard, smoking the same way since it was built in 1882. In a lengthy social media post, the current tenants, who've been running it for 6 years, announced they can't run the operation. Darren says he and Jen tried to turn it around, but the game's over. And what they're hoping to do is to raise cash to clear their final debts. And they've cancelled any Manx National Heritage Tours booked. So can you believe that? 140 years, the last traditional Manx kipper yard is now going. They're hosting a closing down sale this weekend to sell any remaining kippers, as well as kitchen equipment and other items, before closing their doors for good on Sunday, October the 1st. That is the news from Peel. That's it. They are tenants as well, so we haven't heard from the owners. Gaz 313, Dr. Allinson doesn't fill me with confidence when he says departments must try to stay within their budgets. Departments hearing this surely will carry on spending. Well, you heard the news regarding our reserves and where government is at the moment. I just wonder what your thoughts are where that's concerned. We've been used to good times for many, many years, but now it seems we have to watch our way. Development sites in Douglas, as in the Middlemarch, Walpole Avenue site. Does the developer Alto Stratus have the £30 million to complete the build? Who owns that developer, says Andy. The old nuisance building on North Quay is the same as the unfinished building in Duke Street. The plans were there for 10 or so apartments with no parking provision. So what's happening there, says Peter? Well, that went to appeal after it was turned down, but we haven't heard what's happening with the nuisance sites. UK visitors... Texter 557, Michael Portillo, BBC Antiques presenters, revere the iconic rail systems of the Isle of Man. Nowhere else in the world are there so many original railways. It appears everybody, other than the Isle of Man government, treasure railways, says Texter 577. And will Alto Stratus be looking for some government funding, says Andy. We've not heard yet. David's with us. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. I went to the inquiry the other day to listen to the nuisance appeal regarding the quayside, and I took an opportunity yesterday to go down to the quayside and have a little look, and I'd forgot, if you haven't been for a while there, the old pub that was there coming down from Manx Radio, on the side there. The whole site is gone.
Oh, yeah. The Trafalgar, yeah.
All that's empty too, and it's going down towards where the old Esso station used to be. And it made me wonder then, regarding the quayside, the tower that was still there, there's probably not a lot you can do with it there, but hopefully it's under the protection of the government, I suppose, at the end of the day, and you would hope they wouldn't do anything to their own properties, but hey-ho, you never know in this day and age, which brought it into mind that that should be brought into something, because it's a massive big tower. I remember going up, and I remember, and I'm going to say the words, dragging Miss Jocken up there as well to have a look at the place when she was in the Society for the Preservation of the Manx Countryside. And you know what Marge was like.
Well, certainly, and I know that. I mean, Charles Gard has been talking about that tower for years and years and years. Apparently, I think, is some of the machinery left inside it as well?
It is as far... Well, I haven't been in there for... That's another thing too, 10 or 12 years. You don't know. I remember some time ago, and I says it a long time ago now, when I first got into government, I had a visit to the lighthouse, and the lighthouse keepers' cottages. And at the end of the cottages, there was big, massive diesel generators there for electricity. And then, the foghorn.
Yes.
The massive big foghorn. But now it's, I think it's electronic now, the foghorn that's booms out there. But all that stuff was all brass engine in there. Yeah. Everything was gleaming, like all the railway stations. But I just wonder now, because the Kipper Yard's going in Peel, and they'll struggle, I would think. Well, I was saying anyway, somebody can't run it. If they can't run it, is it a way to have a fresh look at things? Where do you want things just to rot or just decay, and then have seagulls just sitting on it all the time, pigeons getting into the loft?
Well, I think, David, at some point, somebody has to make their mind up, don't they? Somebody has to make their mind up and make a decision and then move forward.
Yeah, but you can't get any help. As far as I know, the peanuts for if you've got a listed building, you may have some people who've got maybe listed houses. When you ask for a grant or some assistance to do major work. And I always remember when I was in Parliament, there was one at St. John's there. I won't mention too closely to it, but I remember going out there when the fella said to me, he said, "You can't believe it, the conservation officer said he wanted the old rafters in the cottage trimmed back and new bits of timber in. He wouldn't let them replace the whole roof truss and then put the old slates back." We've got to have a practical view on it. Costs money. If you're looking at something now in the old parts of Douglas, Peel, or Castletown or whatever, it's costing a lot of money to repair stuff. That's why young families are looking for modern stuff, aren't they? Already built, the gardens are already there. You just buy a lawnmower and away you go.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We'll see. Okay, David. Good to hear
See
from
you
you.
then. Bye.
Thanks. Richard dropped a note in just say it was good of both MHKs yesterday to address dilapidated properties, but their focus was on abandoned properties, which the island has been a haven to since our great-grandfather's times. The old saying was, sell nothing, boy. Stop them being sold and people thinking they can get the full price even though the roofs fell off. But my point was as much about houses which are already lived in where the owners are just plain lazy. They can afford to do them up or even just paint them, but they just don't want to. There are charities, commissioners and government who should be helping some people get thousands in rates, but rather than spending it on a skate park, spend it helping people to clean up properties legally or not. They've got to be fixed, that is, says Richard. Thanks for your comment as well. It's awful, says 475, that more Smokehouse is closing just a couple of months after we hear that herring fishing is about to recommence on the Isle of Man. I know it's a private enterprise, but really government needs to have a look at itself regarding food production and food security as well as the wider picture. I just want what you think about that. Lots of small businesses are struggling. There's no dressing it up. If you're in business at the moment, you know times have certainly changed. The cost of supplies has gone up, and you still have to pay wages for people. And we're heading into the winter time. Lots of people are taking a long, hard look at whether or not you will continue in business. It's a dreadful, it's a grim task to look down the barrel of that, and certainly the people who are leasing Moore's Kipper Yard have done that, and the news is it is closing.
Hello, this is Doug Farragher. In conjunction with Manx Radio, I'd like to invite you to join us and learn something about our native Gaelic tongue, the language of man.
And if you want to learn more about Manx Gaelic, go to manxradio.com on the podcast page. We're rerunning Abershen. Say that if you want to learn more about the Manx language. A note in from Mark, who says there are no hot rocks at any depth under the Isle of Man that will make geothermal viable. Dr. Quirk has reported at the Manx Geological Survey website. So why the sudden obsession with something that will never work here defies logic? If it doesn't work in the UK, where there are hot rocks, be it 5 kilometres down, then it certainly won't work here. So, post-fossil fuel, says Mark, the answer is the Rolls-Royce type thorium reactor. These are these mini nuclear reactors that Rolls-Royce have designed and are building. So we get, and the reason we're talking about geothermal is that it's a possibility. It is a possibility that it might work. Now, as we get onto the cusp of the new reality and renewable energy, do we explore all avenues? We've talked about wind power on and offshore. We've talked about solar power. And we know where that goes. But in terms of geothermal, nobody's drilled anything for one sake, so nobody quite knows. So is it worth, bluntly, having a punt, having a gamble and seeing whether it would work? Now, bearing in mind we gambled on the Liverpool landing stage, but also there is wave power, there's tidal power. So where do we put our chips for the future? Or do we put another interconnector in, a second interconnector, and just bank on using UK electricity as our base load for the future? The future's racing towards us, and at some point somebody has to make a decision.
This is an appeal on behalf of the Queen's Pier Restoration Trust. If you're a business owner looking to support a great local cause, then consider sponsoring or donating to the Queen's Pier Restoration Fund. Your support will help ensure that the historic Queen's Pier will remain as an important Manx landmark for future generations to come. To discuss corporate sponsorship opportunities and play your part in history, call Graham on 355 104. That's 355 104. This audio has been kindly sponsored by Paul Carey and Sons.
We're gathered here today.
All her friends thought Kerry was going to be a right bridezilla. She was so determined that everything had to be totally perfect. But they needn't have worried, because Conister Bank had Kerry's back.
Do you, Kerry, have the Conister feeling?
I so do. Wedding finance with a 3-month honeymoon period before payments start. Visit conisterbank.co.im and you can get the Conister feeling too. All loans are subject to status. Terms and conditions apply. Early settlement fees apply.
Get your tickets now for this season's range of onboard dining events featuring old favourites like the legendary Pie and Mash Train, the Curry Club and more, including memorable dining experiences on one of our Steam theme events with something for everyone. To find out what's cooking on the dining car or to book, call 697 457 or visit rail.im.
They are here. The new EVF car washes have arrived on the island. Bigger, wider, taller, state-of-the-art machinery made for today's mighty vehicles. Prepare for the ultimate car wash experience. New EVF car washes at Alexander Drive, Douglas and Ramsey.
If you can't resist a good story,
I'll tell you this, which tickled me tremendous.
Then you really do need to join me in the archive room to meet some of the island's finest characters, sharing their stories and memories of life in years gone by, with tales of harvest, Hollandtide, mill days and fairs. Or it might just be very, very funny.
Well, of course, this just hold on while we recover here.
Gems from the archive room, this and every Thursday just after 6 o'clock. Or pick up the podcast. It's ready whenever you are at manxradio.com and via your usual podcast providers too.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
22 minutes before 1. I really hope Moore's Kipper House is preserved. It's an iconic building. Wasn't there talk of diversifying our fishing industry to catch fish again? You're right, there was. Hopefully it means we'll be smoking kippers again soon. Texter 068 if that's happened. Well, the UK is going for oil and gas now. Are we too, says Ben. Well, apparently we do have gas in the Kroger field off Mackald. And we have yet to hear what's going to happen with that in the future. Certainly, there are other places. In fact, all around the world, people are still prospecting for fossil fuels and are drilling new fields. In fact, in Ireland, they're going to be starting a new gas field off the coast of Wicklow. That's one of theirs to happen in the future. So Ireland is looking. Remember, we use their gas pipe to get our gas, the board gas pipe goes between Scotland and Ireland, and we take a tap off that. So we're using their infrastructure anyway. What are your thoughts where this is concerned? If the UK has approved this drilling for this new field, I'm led to believe Jersey get 100% of their electricity from France through the interconnector. You're right, David. They do have some capacity, but excuse me, most of it does come from Brittany, and that was the one that was threatened, by the way, when those fishing licenses for French fishermen was in the negotiation for that. Some people in France were threatening to turn the electricity off. That's what's called energy security then. David's correct. People don't want to have to spend their time and money on fighting heritage planners to repair and not replace rotten timbers and broken walls. A new house is always going to be the option, says John. Here's a message in that just says, when you're finally granted planning permission, you have 4 years to start or it's not a valid permission regarding heritage properties. Once you start, i.e. you open up the entrance, then there's no timescale to do the work. Also, nothing to do with anybody how long it takes. That's the situation. Where do we go? We are in this. It's funny to talk about this, talking about the Isle of Man watching pennies and not taking care of heritage, something that would have been unthinkable in the good times. Remember the good times when everything was running at full cock, when we had all that money coming in VAT? It was all happening then, but times are different now. So more comment about Daphne Kane and Andrew Smith, which I'll get to in just a few moments' time. Next Monday, the Education, Sport and Culture Ministers on Mannin Line. Julie Edge, the Onken MHK, will be with us, and if there's something you'd like to raise regarding education, sport or culture, then by all means get in touch. A message in from Billy, who just says, can you bring up when Julie Edge comes in, the bowl roof? This is the story that the bowl roof leaks when it's raining, and it is certainly raining at the moment. If you think drilling a hole into bedrock under the Isle of Man will result in hot water bubbling up to the surface, then you're dafter than I thought. Thank you. Even in Nordic countries, that's not how most geothermal plants work. You need to question the science you're being fed, says Simon. Well, apart from that, Simon, what's your view? Now, we've had geophysicists on the programme who say that it is relatively straightforward. It does work elsewhere, and it is part of an ongoing process around the world. More countries are exploring geothermal. It's something new, something we've never had on the Isle of Man. Is it necessarily something that we should dismiss? It would be awful, wouldn't it, if we invested all our money in other things and suddenly geothermal became the big thing in the future, and we weren't on that political bus. Hey, Julian's on now. Hi, Julian. What about this fire in Australia? What's happening there?
Well, I think the global boiling thing has been turned down on the old thermostat today, I reckon.
So, what's burst into flames in Australia?
You got the email. Yes, Big Bessie. If anybody wants to look up Big Bessie, Australia. The largest, newest, one of the first commercial-size lithium-ion Tesla battery commercial systems, a bit like it's being touted for the island, has caught fire. And the police and the fire brigade are recommending some evacuations from the toxic smoke, and they're going to let it burn out. So not quite sure how much of that several £100 million is going to go up in smoke since yesterday, but the fire's still raging, apparently.
If anybody's got a copy of The Guardian, it's in the Guardian newspaper today. This is, putting out a lithium fire isn't as easy as it sounds.
Well, yeah. I mean, The Guardian, to be fair, to quote them, they said that, nobody commented on a gas canister going up the other day. But on the other hand, when was the last time you ever heard of a normal power station on fire? I can't remember the last time I ever heard of a gas or a coal power station on fire. But, yes, you had a guy texting earlier about geothermal. I've actually got David Quirk's document in front of me on the potential for geothermal energy on the Isle of Man. And he states on the 8th paragraph, in the Isle of Man there are no suitable aquifers. We have also searched for thermal springs without success. But he never mentions hot, dry rock.
Yeah, that's a different type of geothermal, isn't it? Just sourcing, because they do that in Iceland, isn't it? They tap into the hot water there. But what's been mentioned on the Isle of Man is not that. It's drilling down to hot rock, circulating water and driving a steam turbine.
Well, like science, like politics, sometimes it's more important to have a sit back and think what wasn't mentioned. So I think he is not saying there is no hot, dry rock under here, and there is all over the place if you're prepared to dig a bit deeper to get it. I think your texter also mentioned about getting thorium reactors. Thorium is still in research. It is not a real thing yet. But those Rolls-Royce small modular reactors, there were 16 in the make, and they're all sold, and they're $4 billion each. And they use about, I think it's something like about 9 times more than we need. So they're only making the one size, and they're all spoken for. So it's not a real thing, really.
As we stand at the moment, though, Julian, we're in a unique situation, and the Isle of Man, surely we have to get this right. We can't afford a failure because it will cost too much money.
Well, actually, to be honest, if you remember when I rang in yesterday, I'm still waiting for an answer for where that 600 million plus is going to come from. I mean, I think we heard about something about, we'll have cheap electricity. Although I am reading, just a month ago, the UK government was warning that they were putting plans forward for winter blackouts this winter again in the UK. So I'm not quite sure what happens when we're on an interconnector and the UK starts rolling out blackouts.
Well, you could guarantee that unless we've got something, if you like, bomb-proof, a negotiation in place, that we would be surely first to be blacked out.
That's right. I also wonder, actually, there was mention yesterday that Pulrose Power Station was serviced a couple of years ago. It'd be quite interesting to know how good a service that is. Is that a service for 5 or 10 years ahead? I mean, it's great. I mean, it's like a car, isn't it? It makes you wonder how long that service will last for us. Was it the combustors? Was it other bits? Was it electrical? It'd just be interesting to know. If you service something, you've got a service schedule, haven't you, for the next time that you need it?
Well, it will be nice to know from Manx Utilities, because everybody talks about the life of the power station. Well, of course, the power station is a bit like Trigger's brush. Bits of it can be replaced, and the thing, those gas turbines can be repaired, they can be replaced, we can get new ones. So the gas powered power station will be there for as long as there is political will, surely.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit confused, because I think Daphne mentioned yesterday that to service it properly or commission it to have a mix, say, of hydrogen and gas, and hydrogen is highly difficult to use because of its leakiness and its explosive potential. Anyway, she mentioned something about hundreds of millions potentially to service it and to recommission it, but you can buy a new one for less than hundreds of millions. I mean, even with my profit on the thing, it didn't go that high in price even back then. So I fail to see how a service, it would be like saying I'm not going to service this Suzuki Vitara anymore because it's going to cost 30,000 quid to service it. I mean, it's not really realistic, is it?
Okay. All right. Thanks, Julia.
Thanks, Andy. Cheers.
12 minutes before 1. Just to clarify what Dr. Allinson has said, the Isle of Man's income should reach more than £1 billion next year, £1,000 million, but the government is still going to have to dip into reserves, which means it's going to cost more than £1 billion to run the country. The Treasury Minister has said that considerations being already given to next year's budget, the use of government reserves has been in the spotlight after the conference last week. Government said more than 750 people attended, engaging with ministers in challenges facing the Isle of Man: budgets, fiscal resilience, finance, money, basically. And John Webster, former government economist, has been critical of the current use of reserves. He called it ridiculous and unsustainable. So with 1.6 billion left in the reserves, 900 million of which is in the National Insurance Fund. Are you getting this? So 1.7 billion in the reserves, 900 million in the National Insurance Fund. The available money that government has to spend is £600 million. February and budget day is just over 4 months away, so Dr. Allinson is certainly working on the next financial plan for what is going to happen to you and me financially.
At NFU Mutual in Douglas, we believe the best way to look after our customers is to be based close to them. And so, with an office at Key House on South Quay, our great service is always close to home. If you need car, home or business insurance, call in to see us at NFU Mutual for a friendly face-to-face chat. Call us on 674 191. That's 674 191. Or to visit our website, Google NFU Mutual Isle of Man.
Are you a reluctant landlord, tired of tenant hassles, cursed by constant maintenance, tormented by empty properties producing no rent? Want to escape these worries or get out altogether?
At Prime Lettings, we understand your pain and have bespoke solutions to release you from these problems. Ring us on 616 707 for a free confidential chat.
Prime Lettings. We're on call and on the ball at 616 707.
Book now for Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at the
Gaiety Theatre from October the 8th to the 14th. With a cast of local favourite stars, this feel-good, joyous musical is suitable for the whole family. Packed with fun, uplifting songs and dances, with hundreds of beautiful costumes, and many of the island's most talented trained children. Don't miss the Christine Wilde Theatre School and Rachel Wilde Performers Studios, Joseph at the Gaiety Theatre this October.
Gilg Jew, Gilg J as Gilg Sarah.
A Gilg, the Manx Gaelic, Chinian Amera, the mother tongue of Ellan Vannin, the Isle of Man. You can catch up with more of Manx Radio's Manx language programmes in the weekly podcast Abershen Rish. Say that again. Shene, that's the one.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good to have you along. 9 minutes before 1. In response to Julian, says Texter 653, there was a fire at a coal-fired power plant in Japan in March, resulted in the loss of 2.67 gigawatt. The fire in Australia is one battery as part of that power station, so one battery, not the whole site as well. But it is disconcerting. And have a look at the Guardian website, theguardian.com. It's about this lithium battery fire, which they just can't put out. I mean, the fire service is just saying stay inside because of hazardous fumes, and they're just waiting for it to burn itself out, because putting out a battery fire like that, we've heard about that on the Isle of Man. If you have an electric vehicle fire, the Isle of Man Fire and Rescue Service do have EV blankets. Literally, they smother the whole thing. They just don't have that many. I think it's in single digits that they have. As yet, we haven't had this, but, you know, this is about risk mitigation. Everything in life now is about risk mitigation, including if you're heading over the mountain road, because there's a warning of fog on the mountain road. So please do take care. The Dublin flight cancelled, and also the last Gatwick flight is cancelled tonight because of the weather. Stay tuned. And the gargoyles from Park Road School are still getting some traction. It was asked last week about Park Road School, or what used to be Park Road School, is one of our brownfield sites. Much has been mentioned of it. It's a very big site, considering now that the Bowling Green pub has closed down. But there used to be some gargoyles outside Park Road School, and it was brought up last week. Nobody knows where they are. So if you know where the gargoyles are from outside Park Road School, we'd like to know. And still more comment on the leaking roof at the Bowl. And certainly something we'll bring up with Julie Edge next Monday, when the Education, Sport and Culture Minister is in. Thank you also to Trevor, who says, You force me to go into my man cave and dig out my Vangelis LPs because of albedo 0.39. Albedo is the amount, or the measurement of which the Earth reflects sunlight back. And albedo is it's all to do with the poles and how much they reflect light back, and how much radiation is absorbed, and thus how much ice melts because of it. And Trevor just said, who'd have thought Vangelis had given us all the answer way back when? On the back of that government announcement for investment in brownfield sites, then what is going to happen to the prison site? With the announcement, says, this is from Harry. Hi, Harry, who just, the announcement of all the other sites. Surely the iconic prison site is something, if the government wants to make money, that's on by Little Switzerland, of course. And surely with the amount of money that you can get for houses around that area, why doesn't the government just do the sensible thing and get some money in by selling the site with planning permission for some big houses? Says Harry. Right next to ShopRite, right next to the police station, near to Summerhill Glen. Well, you're not an estate agent, are you? The gargoyles are probably with the prom lights and the scoreboards, says John. Maybe we should have a photo shoot as well. Where are the prom lights? Where is the scoreboard nowadays? Apparently, says Ian, I know all about this. The gargoyles are playing for Everton. Is that so?
When the Mannin Line's not on air, call Manx Radio to leave your opinion for broadcast on 682 631.
And plenty of answer phone. I can play some of those out. A lot of the answer phone messages I can't play because they are possibly libelous and a little rude, but thanks for those anyway. And Rachel said, you were talking about the best toilets on the Isle of Man the other day. It can be an issue here depending where you are. In towns, I know where they are. Not really enough in some places, but I'll pop into a pub or a cafe if caught short. Usually have to buy something, if it's okay, just to use their loo. Some let you in, especially when I'm with my granddaughters who need to go. It is the provision. We're building up to this.
Hello, this is Doug Farragher. In conjunction with Manx Radio, I'd like to invite you to join us and learn something about our native Gaelic tongue, the language of man.
We're building up to a survey of the best toilets on the Isle of Man and the ones that have disappeared. You hear everything on Mannin Line, from the terribly serious to the flippant but still important. Public loos are very important. Since having my baby, I've noticed how difficult it is to find toilets big enough to take a pram in. The Sea Terminal's done it spot on. That's my usual go-to place when in Douglas. Outside of Douglas, it's hopeless to find baby changing, let alone anywhere that also fits a pram. Very, very pertinent with the Marks and Spencer. Well, they're not actually Marks and Spencer toilets, are they? They're Douglas toilets next to Marks and Spencer. If you got any thoughts on loos or anything else, get in touch. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today. We're back with another open line tomorrow at high noon.
WINT.